Good Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com podcast with Jesse Simonton, Rob Lewis, and Austin Price. I'm Brent Hubbs. Glad to have you along with us on this Tuesday. Lots to get to. We'll start, obviously, in recruiting. Final week, final stretch. Jeremy Pruitt with a couple of in-homes left to get. Where's this thing stand? Let's start first with the one everybody wants to ask about. That's Zach Evans.
Oh, not the McConkey kid? I thought that's who everyone talked about.
We'll get to McConkey in a minute. Let's talk about Zach Evans because he's on the board. Everybody's asking about McConkey too. We'll give you an update there. But let's start with the 5-star that everybody has on their mind.
I put on the board yesterday, and we talked about it in the chat. I think Tennessee's got a real shot here. I think that it'll be interesting to see what he does this weekend. I'm not so sure he visits Georgia this weekend at this point. I think there's a real chance, and I posted this, yesterday morning, that he may take a visit out of conference come this weekend. Yeah, Southern Cal. Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I'd watch, potentially watch Oregon too. Either one.
Florida State's out. They were in it 10 days ago. They're not an out of conference potential visitor.
Yeah,
right?
I don't see them visiting Florida State. I think it's probably to the West Coast. I think this is going to come down to Tennessee and Ole Miss. I really do. I'm not 100% willing to say Georgia's out, but it sure seems like things are trending that way. And so, to me, it could be Tennessee or Ole Miss for this one. And like I said, Tennessee did a really nice job with him this weekend and talking to a couple different people. The kid just had a good time. It was a laid-back visit. He had fun. There was not pressure to, come here. It was just kind of getting to know people, getting to know Pruitt, getting to know Chaney, getting to see their vision for things. And
how big of a deal is it that he didn't get to know a running backs coach?
I think that matters, but I don't think it's the end-all be-all because, I think it would be, erroneous to think that Jeremy Pruitt hadn't told Zach Evans kind of his vision for who he wants to hire. So,
but that might be as reliable as where Zach Evans is going to visit this weekend. That thing's all. I get what you're saying, but.
The biggest takeaway from the weekend is that Tennessee, I think, is now firmly in the mix.
Yeah,
and other than that, I'm not based on because we've talked about predicting anything with Zach Evans is a fool's errand.
Going to visit him last Tuesday was a total shot in the dark. Getting him up here and getting him on a visit was a better version of that. But but once you put your best foot forward. He, again, had a good time, and, you're right. Predicting what this kid's going to do is like, predicting, what the weather's going to be like tomorrow in Knoxville. You can't do it. But, I do think Tennessee has got a much better shot than they ever stood a week ago, and, I think they've got a real fighting chance here to land the kid.
Well, I don't disagree with. I agree with you 100%. That look, once you get him on campus, all bets are off. But they got him on campus and had it and. From everything you've told me, I haven't talked to him, but everything you've told me, he had a good visit here, and
it's also just a matter of the way this particular recruitment has gone. It's also just a matter of you're only fighting so many schools now. For a lot of these 5-stars, you're trying to fight everybody. Well, A&M's out. Florida didn't get him, so Florida's out. He decided to come to Tennessee over Florida State.
So they're out.
We'll see what happens with Georgia. Georgia hosted the DeJuan Edwards, 4-star DeJuan Edwards, whatever that kid's name is, from Moultrie this past week.
And Kirby's going into home with him this week.
I've seen some of the Georgia media start to kind of, put out that maybe he was ahead of Zach on the board there for a while and things like that.
There's some spin there.
Yeah. No doubt. So at the end of the day, Tennessee has positioned themselves quite well. To use a football analogy, you ain't got to score a touchdown. You just can't give up a touchdown. So in other words, just sometimes defense right now is the best course of action, not being on the offense.
But don't you think it's just a tremendous wild card that the kid's not going to be able to sign?
Even
if you do get him committed, you're still going to be white knuckling all the way till. Mini term.
Yeah, I think if he decides to play in this league, I think that he's probably going to be pretty solid to that school. The potential hiccup out there would be a team that's not in the SEC, in my opinion.
I wonder if, then this is a crazy crazy deal because you're right. I mean, we talked about it on the last podcast. You had it right. I've talked to multiple people and everything else. He cannot sign. He can sign scholarship papers only. He cannot sign another national letter, as you both of you said, Jesse, you and Austin noted last week on the podcast. Could you get him into one of those? Because he's not in school, right?
That's correct. He is not a.
So could you get him into like a back half a semester, 1 hour PE class, and get him on campus? Wouldn't be a full-time student, but could you get him here, say, right after spring break?
You don't have to be a full-time student. You just have to be doing something, right?
Right. I'm just wondering if you can't. Now, I don't know that it would lock him in because he wouldn't be a full-time deal, but I just wonder if you could get him on your campus
moved up here.
And get him moved up here, start working out.
Find him some independent study course somewhere.
Take an online course and take like walking or whatever. I mean, everybody had one of those
his
1 hour.
clock would.
Did you have one of those?
I never took walking.
Bowling? You didn't take badminton?
I did bowling. I did not take walking.
But you took one of the 1 hour
Oh
classes,
yeah.
right?
Why, who didn't? I mean,
so why not?
I mean, his clock would start even if he was a part-time student.
Yeah, but it's not going to affect his.
No, I know, but I'm saying it would affect him transferring.
One would think. Now, I don't know how that works. I mean, because this is an unusual circumstance for a midterm guy to be sitting at the house, not able to lock himself in and be bound by national letter. You're trying to get to
this whole deal
first.
is
just when you thought Jay Hardy was odd, there's this.
No, I mean this is there's no doubt the Zach Evans recruitment saga I think has been one of the more bizarre ones of the last several years. Certainly since I've really dove into covering recruiting stuff. To really even go on a macro level here, what's also kind of interesting with all this is the potential dominoes that may happen with all these running back coaches potentially switching jobs. And I know we're going to continue to talk recruiting.
Well, we'll just go ahead and jump into it. We'll bounce around.
So there's obviously the Jay Graham rumors, likely AP. If he leaves A&M, the most likely destination is that Jay comes home and comes to Tennessee. Then there's the rumors that Del McGee may be leaving Georgia and joining Coley at A&M, with Tommy Robinson potentially leaving LSU to go to UG. I mean, that is some crazy musical chairs where all the coaches that we just named were guys that have had a significant interest and part in recruiting Zach Evans. Which is kind of crazy.
And back to what you were saying.
4 different schools.
I'm sure, Austin, that Zach Evans was given some kind of direction that you're going to go with the running back's job. Yeah. And for Tennessee, I mean, if Tommy Robinson is rumored to Georgia, that may not help Georgia's case. And Georgia may be out for Evans anyway, but that may make it more difficult for Georgia because at one point LSU was involved with Evans with Tommy Robinson, and then all of a sudden that stopped or that ceased, right?
Yeah, correct.
I don't know why, but what I'm saying is their relationship, they went opposite directions and he eliminated LSU.
Yes, when a lot of people thought he was going to head to LSU.
Right.
In my opinion, I think the way this thing goes as far as staff-wise is, I don't remember who was posted on the board.
I'm one away, by the way, boys.
You're right. I liked the.
You think you're going to make it?
Hey, I got a week.
Well, you got a much better shot to make it with 1 to go than you had with 2 to go.
I know. So I got a week. But we knew those interviews were out there, so I got a week.
That's right.
Go ahead. The poster on the board mentioned.
The poster on the board kind of outlined something that I've been, going with for about 2 weeks mentally. I just, time and place to put this kind of thing out there.
Well, I mean, Kevin Shear had not left.
Yeah, Kevin Shear had not left.
He was on staff.
which is Niedermeyer goes to linebackers, as Jeremy has pointed out every time he's met with the media and talked about Brian Niedermeyer.
He can coach every position.
He can coach everything. I mean, he can coach defense, he can coach offense. Anyway, so I can't wait to see the post on the board about how terrible my Pruitt impersonation is. So he moves to linebackers. Joe Ossovet becomes the tight ends coach, and then they hire either the best available. You talk about Tommy Robinson. If he's available for Georgia, maybe he's available here. Or the most likely is Jay Graham.
Jay Graham, no offense to Tommy Robinson,
makes the most sense. He's coached with 3 guys on the staff before. He's been a special teams coordinator for 5 years. He can recruit the Carolinas, which is where Tennessee's trying to be a big player in 2021. He recruited Carolinas last week for Texas A&M. It just, in my opinion, he makes the most sense.
And the math also adds up.
Yeah.
In this hypothetical scenario.
Because the money adds up.
That's what I'm saying.
Because Scherer comes off the board at $705,000. You can get Joe Acevet for $215, $250 at most.
I would say. I think he's going. I think he would get if you promote Joe Acevet, you're giving him the Terry Fair contract,
which is $250, or the Brian Niedermeyer,
same thing,
which is $200.
Which is you know, this is your first real shot.
Yeah, so I mean, like again, that's saving $500,000, which means you can, go out and Jay was making $550 at Texas A&M, slated to make I think $575 next year. I think you can get Jay for. I said this on national radio last week. I think you can get Jay for less than that. I think Jay, likes the idea of coming home, but at the end of the day. A year ago he wanted a title, and Tennessee did not have a title to offer, so he chose to go back to A&M for the title and quote more responsibility. I'm just not sure the more responsibility ever played out that way.
The other thing too with Jay that intrigues me more than a guy like Tommy Robinson, and it may be Tommy Robinson. If he is, Tommy Robinson's not a bad hire. But Rob, Jay knows what it's like to get a recruit to come here. Yeah, he was here on staff for a year, but he's a guy who was recruited by Tennessee. He understands the footprint Tennessee deals with in recruiting, whereas a guy like Tommy Robinson's recruited the West Coast, at a big name school, Southern Cal, and now he's recruiting, Houston for LSU.
Yeah,
no offense, I think I could go in and have some success.
It's not like
there.
going over to the Carolinas and recruiting against Clemson, or going to Atlanta and recruiting against everybody.
Well, it also, and again, the Tommy Robinson one makes less sense for Tennessee from a math perspective than it does if we were hypothetically saying these other dominoes play out. McGee's making, I think, 600 at Georgia. Robinson's making around 600 or north of 600 at LSU. So if you're saying that Tennessee would have to really pony up to get a guy like that, whereas Jay is making a little bit less than them, the idea of coming home, he may be more willing to take a contract that's a little bit more palatable for what Pruitt wants to do in terms of kind of spreading out his salary pool.
All right, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, he was. I think the fact that he was here before. The fact that he played here and has all that experience is one thing. The fact that he was here in a professional capacity, even on a lame duck staff. I think that really is a point in his favor. Because there are some unique challenges to recruit here, especially when you're considering the kind of schools you're expected to compete against.
All right, I would be remiss if I didn't ask this question to all of you guys, because this has been thrown at me. Is there something funky going on at Georgia if Dale McGee leaves to go to A&M? Look, the Coley thing, I think clearly Kirby Smart was wanting to make a move offensively and
he got butthurt, and I don't blame the guy. You get demoted, and there's all the notion that Kirby didn't even tell him, and he found out via the radio and all that. I take that one off the board because I
think Kirby upgraded. I think from a play caller standpoint,
Todd Monken's a better, and Coley also almost left for A&M 3 years ago.
That's right.
He's close with Jimbo. He's been on the staff with Jimbo. The McGee thing and the personnel guy they lost. The fact is that Jimbo has been given a just insane amount of money for his salary pool, and they're going all in. The Miscue guy I think got something like a $300,000 raise or something crazy. That's bananas. So, I just think that with the way these contracts and money is, that's what it is, and you're going to see these chess pieces move all over the board with all these different programs.
Jimbo's spending that ESPN TV money long before that check. A&M's got more money than they know what to do.
And he has so much carte blanche because he's got that $75 million parachute behind him. They got to give him pretty much whatever. They got to give him what he wants because they've already committed the amount of funds to say, hey, go win.
To answer the question, if Dale McGee were to leave, whether they get Tommy Robinson or not, I do think it's a weird look. You're a program that's won 10 games and played for the national title 3 years ago and been in the New Year's Six the last 2 years. You naturally have all these guys go pro, Cade transfers, the player personnel guy leaves, which, even if you're talking about a big raise, that's fine, but, it's still an awkward look. I don't think the ship's sinking. There's still going to be the team. If it's not them, it'll be Florida. But one of the two teams picked to go to Atlanta come this fall.
It doesn't look great.
But it doesn't look. It looks weird. I do agree with that. To steal Jesse's word, optics of it looks just a bit funky.
It doesn't look like a program that's poised to compete for national championships for years upon years.
Yeah, it's different than than Saban turning over 5 staff.
Yeah,
because two guys got head coaching jobs.
Or because
or Saban just fired him.
Because he wanted to get rid of. And look, I mean, I think Kirby may have wanted. Look, if you're not making changes,
I just think this is the business. I mean, we weren't sitting here. We thought Tennessee, coming off Pruitt's first season, made a bunch of changes.
Well, but they did. But I think the thing
you look at your staff. I think you look at your staff every year and you say, where do we need to upgrade? How can we not get stale?
Right, and I think for Georgia offensively, at the offensive coordinator position, much the same way Jeremy Pruitt got a mulligan after year one. Kirby, not after year one, but after year one with Coley, is saying, hey, I need a mulligan here.
For sure.
And look, he made a good trade because Todd Monken's a much better offensive play caller, with a better pedigree of doing that. Much the same way Tyson Helton went on and had a good year at Western this year, but Jim Chaney was an upgrade there. Without any question. The McGee thing's a little bit different because he's making good money. He's kind of been around Georgia a little bit. That one surprises me that. I mean, unless he's just getting bananas money at A&M after making really bananas money at Georgia, it's hard to see him getting a $300,000 pay raise to go there, but you never know if that happens.
If that happens, yeah, I have no insight.
And it may not
there.
happen.
The only thing I as we sit here in late January, I guarantee there's going to be articles that come out in the spring, much like stuff that was written here, stuff that's been written elsewhere. That when you bring in some other veteran voices around you about growing into that head coaching role, because now Georgia, he's got a couple ex-head coaches on his staff. How does that allow Kirby to grow as a head coach? Unequivocally, someone's going to write that piece because I mean, for them to lose Pittman and get Luke so quickly, and then to upgrade with Monken, I would not be surprised if you see that.
Well, I think the first piece you
because we all talked about how beneficial it was for Chaney, to come here a year ago.
And I think if you look at how Jeremy Pruitt managed his team in year 2 versus year 1, it was better. Was that all the Chaney effect? I don't want to say that, but this is also the same head coach.
A lot of natural growth for sure.
After the same head coach 7 months on the job before he went into his first camp said, well, I'd call the plays if I could on offense. Then he went a year later, and he's like not on the offensive practice field. Like, Jim Chaney, you're the head coach of the offense.
For sure.
It's completely yours, which I think probably Kirby's doing. 2 articles are going to come out. The article you're talking about, the one that's going to come out before that, is what's wrong with Kirby Smart. There's going to be somebody write the, people jumping the ship type deal with Kirby Smart and all that stuff. And then there'll be the follow-up articles about the growth of Kirby and all that stuff. All right, that's a whole, diatribe to get on there. Let's go back to recruiting a little bit. All right, Caldwell. What's the story there? Going to South Carolina this weekend, we believe?
Yeah, I mean,
feels like Gamecocks.
It feels like Gamecocks to me. Now, the kid don't talk, so I mean,
no, he doesn't.
But just when you read the tea leaves of everything, it's hard not to think South Carolina's not going to be the pick here. Right. But he, after being an unofficial visitor to South Carolina last weekend, he did come to Tennessee this weekend and at least give them a listen. So, to me, there's a puncher's shot, but it just feels Gamecock.
All right, let's go Weidman next.
I think Tennessee's in a good spot there. I don't.
He going to the West Coast this week to visit?
No, he did last week.
Last week was
Ole Miss.
He's going to Ole Miss this weekend.
Okay.
That one just feels like Tennessee or Florida State to me. It just does. I haven't talked to the kid last week. Florida State's going to try to get him back up there unofficially between now and this weekend. If that happens, then that to me that would be a huge eye-opening deal, for where he's probably going to me. But if he doesn't, then I think Tennessee's got a real shot here, to land him. And you have to survive the Ole Miss visit, but I think they've positioned themselves really well.
And Tennessee will be in there mid to late week.
Yeah.
Not sure
that's a potential huge get, is it not? I mean, for the needs in this class and to have him just kind of fall in your lap in January.
Yeah, I mean, like he visited Florida State. I think his mistake was visiting Florida State back in December before Willie was hired, and then
Willie was gone. You mean Willie was fired?
Sorry, Willie was fired before they hired Mike Norvell, and then he ends up not signing there, and that was the blessing for Tennessee because then they were able to get him up here for January. Now, granted, he's a Florida kid; he can go back over there unofficially, and it wouldn't be too far. But that one, if he don't make it back to Tallahassee, I feel like Tennessee may get the pick there.
Yeah, could be Tennessee and Ole Miss this last weekend, big with Weidman going up there and with Zach Evans going up, maybe going there as well. Now we'll see where Evans goes. Well, Evans has already been there. I'm sorry, but Evans been in the end. Could be Tennessee and Ole Miss here in the final week, battling head to head with a couple of guys. D. Beckwith. Got to address the D. Beckwith situation. Everybody sees the tweets. Every kid does this. All the pictures of the official visit. I don't get all caught up into that, but we know he does have a little bit of an affection for Florida naturally. Where do we think Tennessee is with that? Even though they've still got an big in-home with Jeremy Pruitt at some point this year.
Florida's going in home later tonight, and then Tennessee's going to go in after that. So
that's a good setup for Tennessee.
I know, everybody keeps saying, and the kid keeps saying Tennessee or that Florida leads, but he did not come in on his visit. I do know that for a fact. So I mean,
now I will say, hypothetically, why would you at this point?
Yeah, but a lot of kids leave there and tell people, "Oh yeah, I'm in." And just, I'm not saying commit publicly. I'm talking about commit privately.
Okay.
Yeah. Why would you commit publicly? Yeah, that would be silly at this point. I still think Tennessee's in a pretty good spot there. I don't think it's by any stretch of the means done. I don't think D knows at this point. But I think, again, when you look at all the kind of tea leaves to this thing, more tea leaves read Tennessee than they do Florida. But again, the one tea leaf that is, to me, maybe the biggest individual tea leaf is the fact that he does have that affection, that kind of Florida's like the shiny object.
Well, and I'm sure he got some of the answers he was wanting to hear about how Florida's going to use him offensively.
Yeah, and
because there was a big unknown by him going into that visit. Felt like that maybe Florida didn't have as detailed of a plan for him offensively as Tennessee has shown. Sounds like he got some of those details over the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, and why would they not? Why would you?
It's what they should do if you're going to recruit him well.
Of course, we knew the academic stuff, which I think was a concern that he hadn't really been placed. But that's what official visits are for.
Right, he went down there for a game day, so he didn't get to see all the academic people. That's not uncommon. He just been up here so many times. He met with all those people before, so you knew that was going to happen. I still wonder if distance from home at the end of the day doesn't carry a huge weight in this one.
I agree. The fact that Dad did not go to Gainesville was a good sign. Just because
you wanted to here either.
Correct. To me, you want it to be apples to apples,
right,
though.
Yeah.
If he had went to Gainesville after not coming here, then to me, then you're apples to oranges,
and the tie to the fact that Cameron's coming here. I mean that's a chip that Tennessee has, in its pocket.
I know, and he, he's told me, well, we've not played because they don't play on the same high school team,
right?
So he's like, we've not played together the last few years, so that's not as big of a deal as everybody's letting on, but are they really going to separate when they have a chance to play together? Or even?
Well, it could be the thing that if it's 49-49, that's what
tips the scales.
Right. Distance from home and the brother's going to be there might be enough.
Gives
to push
you that last little push over.
I think that one is going to be a coin flip up till the end.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think anybody's going to know because the kid don't talk.
Yeah,
the kid seemed like he's totally aloof to a lot of what's going on.
Yeah, I think that one's all the way to a coin flip at the end. All right, Ladd McConkey is this name that everybody's talked about from North Georgia. Kirby Smart's supposed to go in to see him this week.
Grew up a ball fan.
Supposed to visit Georgia officially. They've offered him. Where's Georgia going to be at numbers-wise there? He was up here for an unofficial to Tennessee on Sunday. I think Tennessee's got interest there. I don't think Tennessee's ready to – I'm not sure Tennessee's ready to drop a national letter of intent to him to sign unless, a bunch of stuff falls –
yeah,
awkwardly for Tennessee, or badly for Tennessee.
Yeah, well, Tennessee has the two receivers they would like, or it's either Weidman or Caldwell.
Right.
And those are the priorities right now.
Not to say they don't have some interest in McConkey being on their roster, but I'm not sure in terms of him being a signing day guy.
And even Beckwith, they're recruiting as a receiver. Florida's the one recruiting him as a tight end. Tennessee likes him as a receiver that can play a little tight end, but it can also be in the backfield and even take a carry.
Kind of like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
And
offensive weapon.
We'll see what kind of conversations Tennessee has with McConkey this week, following what he learned in visiting with the coaches up here on Sunday, and see if anything else kind of develops or transpires with that one moving forward in terms of offering him an official visit or a coach going in the home to see, which is not taking place. Tennessee's been by the school, but they've not had an in-home visit with the kid, to note that as well. So that's kind of an update on the recruiting board, sort of where things are. Tennessee's heavily involved in a bunch of 2021s. We've had stories up on those guys in 2022s, and Tennessee picks up a commitment over the weekend.
Good-looking kid, too.
Isaac Washington.
Yeah, and a kid you guys said was on commitment watch. Nice get for Tennessee. Good-looking kid in an area that's good for Tennessee to go recruit, right?
100% with that one. You know, the North Carolina's going to be big for this 2021 class, and you know, to get off to a good start in that state to me only helps him because he's got a real bubbly personality. You know, I thought the kid would be real shy, but he's not. He's very outgoing. So, you know, I think that's a feather in Tennessee's cap because he knows the two kids over there. You know, talking about Dillsworth and then Ritzy, and you know, I think that only helps. You know, that Tennessee's got him in the boat early because I think he'll legitimately work the Twitter, work the phones, and really help them recruit.
Well, and they got a quality player who I think if you watch his film, I mean, he's a kind of a classic guy whose offer list outranks
his
current
stars.
rankings.
Yes.
And he's likely to get a bump at some point. But I mean, he legitimately had SEC offers from a bunch of the top schools, and Tennessee did a nice job getting in early, hosting him on campus multiple times. And like, I mean, again, it was AP had kind of teased a week ago the expectation was if it was a good visit with Mama this weekend that she was going to kind of give him the thumbs up, and that's what happened on Saturday. So Tennessee got a big commitment, and that they need with the new recruiting calendar, you kind of need some dominoes to fall a little bit earlier since it's the dead period in February. So to kind of go ahead and get one big fish on the board, I think is good news for the Vols.
Yeah, big weekend for Tennessee this weekend with some unofficial visits, and then it goes silent. Then it's going to be spring practice before you get a whole lot going on with that. So we'll continue to have plenty of coverage from those visitors this weekend, from the visitors this past weekend, and other things as well. Let's jump to basketball quickly. Tennessee takes on Texas A&M, but before we get to that, obviously, the basketball world has been reeling from the tragic loss of Kobe Bryant and just a horrible story, the loss of Kobe Bryant and his daughter. Rob, I wanted to ask you, did you see him play in AAU basketball?
No, I did not.
I didn't know if you ever got a chance to
Slightly before my time.
Slightly before your time. Just thoughts on kind of on watching him.
I think for me the biggest take, I mean kind of the biggest thing for me is, and me and Austin talked a little bit about this on the TV show on Sunday. I mean, the way he transcended just basketball and just what an icon he was for younger players. I mean, like, he's somebody that all these kids today, that are, not only just like Kevin Durant's age, but Jordan Bowden's age. I mean, they all. I mean, he's more than just like an all-star that they might have had to put. I mean, he's somebody they wanted to emulate, that they learned from, and like, great example today. Rick was asked about it in his Monday press conference, and he said that that Kobe Bryant was a guy that he would bring Kevin Durant into his office and they would watch tape of Kobe Bryant. And Rick would be like, you need to watch this, watch how he does this. You need to add this to his game. And I mean, there's not a lot of people out there that are kind of like templates. I think that somebody like Rick Barnes. I mean, Rick Barnes knew he had something special in Kevin Durant, and he looked at Kobe Bryant as somebody that Kevin Durant was on the same level with, and took the time to kind of point these things out to Kevin, what made Kobe special, same things you could do. And just, like I said, the biggest thing to me is he's somebody that transcended basketball and was part of pop culture.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that, of course, from my age standpoint, it was Michael Jordan.
Sure.
And then Kobe was the guy who took the mantle. But the difference for me, I mean, Kobe did it at such a young age, so for those guys, he wasn't that far different in age to some of those guys that you're talking about in terms of emulating. You know what I mean? Somebody was emulating him, and they were 2 years younger than him or 3 years younger than him, and he had such an impact early. As such a youngster in the NBA. I mean, when you talk about one and dones, this was a guy who was, not a one and done. Obviously, he could go straight to high school, but he was different than Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett went to Minnesota, and nobody really saw him until years later, really, when he got to Boston, is when you saw a lot of Kevin Garnett. here is Kobe Bryant going to one of the three biggest franchises in the NBA, handles himself and is successful on and off the court doing that as an 18-year-old.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to this story. I do think that yesterday one of the most fascinating things about how everything unfolded after the news came out is that for all of his accomplishments, for all of his dunks, his championship rings, the fact he had won an Oscar, and during his post-career, the videos that gained the most traction and went viral were him as a dad. And him just being a father to both his daughter that passed away and to his other kids. And I think that just kind of speaks to his evolution and growth of some of his off-field stuff that he did kind of have to overcome and kind of what his second act was going to look like. In terms of him as a player, my relationship, I got to see him play once, going to a Hawks game, one of my first jerseys as a kid. I didn't care about the Lakers, but I liked Kobe. I had a number 8 Kobe jersey. I used to read about him, in Sports Illustrated for kids, and then in Sports Illustrated. And so he was a guy I loved. And to Rob's point about these guys, idolizing him, and I think what's so devastating about this and why the outpouring has been so just incredible and phenomenal to kind of really take in and digest is that he's been the first athlete that I can really think of off the top of my head that in the modern culture in our lifetime where we have seen his entire life from start to finish and the different bridges that he crossed in terms of he was the next generation after Jordan, but he played against Jordan. And then he handed the baton to LeBron, but he played with LeBron. Right. He played against LeBron. And then you got high school kids and these guys like Ja Morant and whatever that have been wearing his shoes even years after he stopped playing. And so for him to literally resonate with all 3 of these different generations, there's very few athletes like that in history, much less that are living today. And that's what, again, makes it so devastating that we didn't really get to see whatever his next chapter was going to be with the show that he's doing detail on ESPN or making the films and whatnot.
Yeah, for me, it's being the father of 2 girls, it just sucks. I think the last 24 hours, as much as I hate that Kobe's gone. I hate it more his daughter's gone. I hate it even worse that his wife and the other 3 daughters are sitting there today. They're just left behind. Their world's shattered, and that just. And I get it. Listen, the one thing I do want to say is, is for everybody's going to talk about Kobe, but there are other people that died in that helicopter, and that that's more tragic than anything else. Is that it's no lives more important than the other. But everybody's going to talk about Kobe, and he's right. You and I talked about this yesterday. You talked about you grew up with Jordan. Jordan. I was 8 when Jordan won his first title. I was 15 when he won his last. And then Kobe started winning them just a few years later. So I was senior year in high school into college when Kobe was winning all his titles. So for me, I kind of got to watch it all. Because I remember going and watching Jordan play against the Bullets here at Thompson Bowling Arena back in '89, '90, whatever it was. All the way through the glory years of that, and then the glory years of the Lakers with Kobe. And he did kind of just touch everybody, and did it in a way that Magic had this kind of infectious personality, with the big smile when he walked in a room, and Kobe was different. He was more like an aura, guys. People wanted to follow him. It wasn't like this, shining personality. It was just kind of an aura around him.
Well, there was a presence. There's no question. It was a presence, and how he handled himself on and off the court. He was not perfect off the court, but he certainly did what he could to redeem himself, and by all accounts was a good dad. And obviously, thoughts and prayers are for everyone involved in what was just a terrible tragedy on Sunday. All right, let's get back to basketball. Tennessee takes on Texas A&M, Rob, in a must-win basketball game for this team after a good showing against Kansas. I know they didn't go out there to show; they went out there to win, but they handled themselves in that environment better than I expected them to play and gave themselves a chance.
Totally. I mean, Rick Barnes didn't look at it like this because, I mean, he's all about winning. He doesn't, care about consolation prize. I thought it was the best game they played all year, and I don't really know that it's close.
I agree with that.
I mean, but at the same time, talking with Rick on Monday, I kind of asked him if that was not the best game they played all year, and he kind of semi-conceded it, but then he immediately segued into it was real easy to flip on the tape and show them 4 defensive possessions where they drop the ball. If you do what you're supposed to do, that's 8 fewer points they get, we win the game. I mean, that's how he's thinking. Sure. And same thing on offense. There's 3 possessions where we missed 3 wide open guys. Blah blah blah. So, but for me, for where this team's at, for less than 2 weeks ago, going to Georgia and just absolutely laid an egg against a team that's 1-5 in the SEC, I think that was a turning point for this team, and I think they played better, way better since then. If they play like they played against Kansas on Saturday, they'll make the NCAA tournament.
And they can sweep this week.
Can they do that 12 more times? I don't know.
Right.
But if they do play at that level for the next 12 games. They'll make the NCAA tournament.
And it starts with this Texas
A&M.
Yeah,
this Texas, it should be a laydown. I mean, they're bad. I mean, they've got 3 SEC wins, but they're the lowest scoring team in the SEC. They shoot the worst from 3. They shoot the worst overall. And for a Tennessee team that is not only the best in the SEC in scoring defense and field goal percentage defense, but top 20 nationally in both those, this is one that you should handle.
What is it about this team that's finding itself offensively? Is it just the transition stuff? Is it playing inside out?
I think it's playing inside out.
Do you think that's the
I think
key?
it's easy. Playing inside out and not jacking up threes with reckless abandon. I mean, I think Rick took that Georgia game tape and just absolutely beat his team over the head with it for 3 days. And they've looked different on offense since then. They chucked 26 threes against Georgia. I mean, they've not come close. I mean, they've not shot more than 15, I want to say 15 in the last 3 games. I mean, in any of the last 3 games. Fulkerson takes 2 shots against Georgia, and I think he was a little sick that night, but still, he took 2 shots. Since then, he's been double digits 3 straight games, set his career high with 18 points against Ole Miss the other night. He's been a totally different player. I mean, I think
Pons has shown growth.
Pons was the best player in the court on Saturday, I thought. I mean, I know Azubuike was good, Dotson was really good, but I mean, East Pons was a load. And I mean, Tennessee goes to Kansas, loses by 6. They only had 4 players hit a shot. That's incredible. They got 1 point off the bench. Jalen Johnson hit a free throw. Josiah James just
no-showed
it.
He's got to play with contact better around the rim. He's got to embrace the contact.
I mean, Rick
better
wasn't shy about calling him out on Monday, not surprisingly, but 0 for 6, 6 turnovers. I mean, if you get anything almost from that position, that's a positive. You might go in there and steal that one. So
don't you think he has to play more physical for a guy who's got his size?
Totally. Remember saying he's the best looking kid on the team, but maybe Eves, right. I guess, is put together a little bit. I mean, but yeah, he's got to be able to bully some people, and he just doesn't play that way. Right. But last positive takeaway, I thought Jordan Bowden was spectacular in that second half. That's as good as he's looked in a Tennessee uniform. I thought it's the best he's done as far as answering the bell, knowing that his team needs him to be really good, really productive. And he accepted that burden against a very tough team. 19 points in the second half. I mean, that was as good as I've seen him play.
Yeah, I thought he played really well. The question is, can this team consistently do
that's
anything?
The question. I mean,
moving
I
forward?
don't think you can guarantee anything, not with what we've seen. But these last 3 games, small sample size, but I mean, they look like a different team.
Is Yves Pons going to have a decision to make at the end of the year?
I don't think he's going to have a decision to make at the end of this year, but he's certainly put himself on the radar.
I don't think there's any doubt.
I mean, somebody might take him in the second round, maybe, but he's just, to me, he's just not a no-brainer. He's too much all over the board.
But you got 12 games to find some consistency.
I mean, if he does that a couple more times, yeah, especially like against Kentucky or Auburn, then yeah, he might have some. I would say, and I've heard this from some people around the program, I think just as much as the NBA, he's the type of guy that, since he's from Europe, somebody over in the EuroLeague might make him a very lucrative offer after his junior year here.
The question I got with him at the next, look, moving him to the 4 has been a perfect fit for him. We talked about that back in the spring, that it would, playing around the basket's much better for him than facing the basket 20 feet away. Can he play that way at the next level?
I think, man, he's so strong and so athletic. I mean, I still think he can guard 2 or 3 positions. And he's made so much strides on offense. I mean, Jesse, he's turned into a guy that you could stick in the quarter on offense the way that they play up there, and he could hit that corner 3 33, 34% of the time. And just the fact that
And the way the NBA's gone now too is that basically there's not even really a 3 or 4. It's just are you a swing man? Are you
it's true. And he'll be able to guard wing. I mean, he's not going to be able to guard. I mean, like Carl Towns in the post probably, but
no.
yeah,
but
how many
Carl
of those
Towns is playing 5.
Yeah, how many of those guys are there?
Right.
There's
and
not
Towns is playing the 5.
I mean, he's going to be able to guard a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's got to be more consistent, but it's pretty amazing. Here's a guy who, his last run in Europe back over the summer, he didn't score. He
averaged less than 2 points a game.
He was a non-offensive factor, and then, as you mentioned, he goes to Lawrence, Kansas, and arguably is the best player on the court for either team in a Saturday afternoon game televised on national television. Pretty remarkable turnaround for him as he's found his way offensively. So plenty of basketball coverage coming up. Obviously a big week for Tennessee. Big week for Tennessee football and recruiting as it's the last week coaches can be on the road. We'll continue to follow the running back coach search as well. Continue to bring you updates on the 2021s and 2022s out there as we get more information on those guys. That's going to do it for this edition of the Volquest.com podcast. For Austin Price, Jesse Simonton, and Rob Lewis, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.